Hello, I'm John Moore. I'm with JHM Technologies. I'm here today to give you an overview of our two-day RTM, light RTM, and vacuum infusion training course that we host here at JHM Technologies in Fenton, Michigan, USA. We're always asked some of the same questions from molders in the marketplace. They want to know, well, I'd like to get into close molding, but I don't understand how do I make the flange, or where do I put the injection port or the vent ports, or how does this process work, or what's the right process for my parts that I have in mind? Well, let's just talk about what we go over. We start with part design. Not every part is practical for every form of close molding. SMC and RIM offer some advantages that can't be done in vacuum infusion, RTM, light RTM the same way. What are the differences? What dictates which direction that somewhat locks some parts into one variation or another? And let's go over that when you're here. Now, once we've decided on a application, a part as it were, that fits into the RTM, light RTM process, even the vacuum infusion process, well, then there goes more into the part plug design. So let's take into consideration, what does it take to make the flange? How do we consider that in our design of our plug? Or is there any consideration for trim? We don't make the pattern exactly to the edge apart. Well, how much extra do we need for trim, and how do we deal with that? Or any other post-mold operations, can those factors be incorporated into the plug design? We go over those. Now, selecting the best process, I alluded to that here a moment ago. Not every process has a unique, perfect fit. There are some parts that could be made many different ways. However, there are some key fundamental factors that absolutely drive a very practical process for an application. In other words, what is it that would make it, if I were going to make this bin, for instance, what would the consideration be that I take into to understand whether I should make that using an RTM process or a vacuum infusion process? Which things drive me in which directions? We'll go over that. You'll have full confidence to know that you don't make a selection on a process or a mold design simply because a resin supplier or another molder or an employee that's just come on board says, well, the newest thing is vacuum infusion, or the greatest is this or it's that. There are some things to understand. There are some processes that make sense based on some key factors, and you'll know that. Tool design then is the next element. How do you design your molds? Where, again, as I said, do you put the ports, vents, and injection ports, seals? What is the consideration around all that? You'll fully understand how that's to be done. Tool build. How do you then build the molds? What is the factors that go into building a mold? How thick should the mold be? Is there any factors that go into, if it's a laminate and you're backing up with some steel box tubing, if we bond that tight together, is that a concern? Well, you'll know what's a concern. You'll know what it takes to build an accurate mold and a structurally sound mold, yet you'll be able to do it in a very practical, cost-effective way. Of course, we talked about accuracy. Well, that comes from sheet wax. When we're thinking about close molding, why are we considering it? We want to take some of the operator technique out of it, obviously make it more the process controlling the end product. But what we're looking for inside of that, we're looking for consistency. And one of the consistent factors is we want two finished sides. That's a given. But we want a consistent part thickness. Where do we get that part thickness consistency? We do it by having half of the mold made and then applying sheet wax to the thickness of the part. So we look again at this part, you see how uniform that part wall thickness is. It'll be that same way every time, but that original thickness, what made the mold that accurate, was the sheet wax. And most importantly, was not just how that sheet wax simply laid in the mold. No, there are some elements that you do that will hold that wax locked into place very accurately when you build your mold, so that your mold is consistent in part thickness, and that is one of the absolute key elements to controlling your process. You'll know how to do that. Of course, this course is a bit of classroom. I'm coming to you as one with experience over 35 years in the molding industry. I've been in the trenches. I know what it's like as supplying to a tier 1 automotive supplier directly for a car build manufacturer as well as for mass transits. bus manufacturers. I've been there. I know what you're going through day in and day out to produce parts to a standard. So that knowledge backed up with a full understanding of the chemistries of polyesters, vinyl esters, methacrylates, epoxies, and urethanes, bringing that together, and then how to build the equipment. JHM Technologies not only provides schools, we also sell equipment, the state-of-the-art injection systems. And how are they state-of-the-art? Because we understand the process and we put the needed controls in place into the equipment. And we build tooling here and offer that to the marketplace. And all of this is a package. But for you, we're offering to teach you how to make the tooling and how to make the selection and control that process. So when we go into the process, we talk about demos. You want to see, well, I'm telling you that a bag application will produce this and a RTM application will produce that. Why not show it to you? So we mold the same parts two different ways, so you could touch and feel and understand what is the real differences. Of course, having all that in play comes then back down on the floor, as I say, every day. What is most critical to your process so you get consistent results? I'll be honest with you. The vast majority of the molders have a very limited knowledge of what is absolutely critical to control. The majority of the marketplace, the molders are running at a bit of a haphazard ass. And then I'm not being critical, I'm being honest. There are certain things that if all of them would apply those key elements and add, in effect, to what they're currently doing, they would be far more efficient. You will have that input. You will know what's most critical in your process and what's often being overlooked in the market, giving you the advantage as a molder. That's just a quick overview. There's so much more that we'll go over. We look forward to seeing you. If you have any questions now, please feel free to give us a call or email us online there at rtmcomposites.com. But we look forward to seeing you here soon.